Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live, the lab. We have a piece of half page, 8.5 by 5.5 vintage paper. Okay, it's not cardstock or anything like that. It's just this cheap paper that comes in these multi pattern packs that you can find on Amazon or wherever. And they're typically just text paper that you run through your printer and print things on, to give it that kind of aged, antiqued look. It's a fun paper to stamp on because you have this inherent pattern and temperature scheme in the background. And I don't know. I mean, you can't really add too much color to it because it's just this real thin paper. It's just as thin as like copy paper. In fact, my copy paper even feels a little bit thicker. So, I mean, you're kind of, somewhat limited in comparison to something like cardstocks, thicker cardstocks. But working within those parameters, it's a really fun surface to utilize. It's a pre-printed paper, so this kind of aged look is being achieved by printer inks on here. So you got to test out your different inks and see what ones print the darkest on here in terms of your black inks. Okay, I used a hybrid ink right here, which is part pigment and part dye-based inks. You can use a VersaFine Clair on here, dye-based inks. Stays on. You can use pretty much any type of ink that you want on this type of surface. So, different techniques. Maybe you have to, just utilize the types of impression inks that are going to suit that type of coloring process. So if you want to use something like alcohol inks or something like that to color this in, then you might want to stay away from something like a pigment ink or a StazOn and stay with something like a water-based ink. Hello, Linda. How are you? All right, let's see here. Let's go on here and let's start adding in some additional imagery. A lot of the imagery is already stamped out in here. I think I'm going to wait to stamp some foreground imagery in here. This is the Tiny Rock Small, and I'm going to make this, my objects, a little bit more anchored, or a lot more anchored down, by adding in some textural tone in here. So it just is a texture or pattern. But if you add multiple applications of it, especially in different incarnations, dampness, wetness, it starts to become like a toning device, so you can get darker to lighter applications of it like that. Okay. I have these deer right here, and I'm going to be careful not to stamp over them so that you can see their silhouette, so I'm not going to put a bunch of tone and texture right behind them, otherwise it's going to make them a little bit more invisible. Or not invisible, but certainly camouflaged. And I'm going to make this area in here, I mean, it could be grass or water or something like that. I'm going to make it water, but I'm going to make it real shallow water. And what you do for that is you just apply different kind of rock textures in it, or different types of texturing, and it can look like it's more shallow because you can see the bottom of the, I don't know, area in there, as opposed to deeper waters. Now this is a big open area, and like I said, I'm not going to be doing like a lot of coloring or anything on here. I'm not going to be doing like 7 layers of blues or something like that in here. So it's largely going to be monochromatic, so I'm going to take care of a lot of this area with this texture instead. And that really fills in this area with a lot more kind of visual patterning, instead of just having it wide open, which could look okay too, because it does have, this paper does have this patterning on here inherently. So you're not just leaving it just stark white, or something like that. Hello, Cynthia. How are you? We have so many papers now, huh, Linda? From white cardstock to a surplus of red mirrored metallic. We need to find something to do with that, because I have a whole pack of that, and I thought you did too. We need to find some really cool usages of it. All right. A lot of texture in here. I'm not going to follow up with anything in here because that's supposed to be, representative of the distance. So I wanted this shoreline to come around in here. Look how it's super busy right now, but we're going to add in, our tone and shading into that with either a colored pencil or a watercolor pencil. I like using the watercolor pencil on these types of things, but sometimes I'm thinking, I kind of spend all that time with a watercolor pencil and kind of making these look like more of like a watercolor ink, Chinese like ink painting. But then, a lot of times I'm thinking, I don't know if that, really shows up at all, the watercolory portion of it. So it's like sometimes I'm thinking, well, it could have been achieved in like a quarter of the time with just, a colored pencil. So I don't know. Well, we'll see how it goes here. Okay, so I'm going to add in this. I don't know what it is. It's a moon or a sun. It's whatever you interpret. Right here. I'm going to transition again, I think. Should I transition? I don't know. I'm trying to think if I should have done it heavier from the top and less on the bottom. Maybe that would look better, but I don't know. We'll put a little bit heavier on the bottom, so more opaque and white on the bottom, and the top portion will be darker because I'm using less of the white ink up there. So instead of just having this mono value white orb in there, it'll be kind of a transitioned one, a little bit like that. And that white ink will allow us to use some white highlights here and there, fog and mist and white, being that we've created our light circle. I don't think that was that round. I think it's become not round, unrounded. Or so I guess I've used it too many times. It's a little bit ragged. Let me see. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Sometimes when you see those like suns on this isn't on the horizon, but they're more oval. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. I don't remember which one that was. I think it's this one right here. I put a X. Don't use that one. I use my hole punches apparently a lot. Or I don't know. I don't know if I use them a lot, but I don't. I guess I don't toss them out. All right. So let's see here. We'll make these areas darker at the. See, that's the thing about doing these types of things. Those like a Chinese paintings, they're kind of like lighter at the base, because it's like everything's in like mist. So it's like my instinct is to go darker at the base because these things are being top lit. But if I have all that mist down here, it really should be darker up top and lighter on the bottom. So I'm never really quite sure what to do. Sometimes I just kind of, I don't know, just start winging it, and it's kind of like a incarnation of both or something like that. Not sure what else. Yeah, we need to figure out something with that. Maybe we can do like some kind of like real ominous looking red toned type of mirror application with that or something. I don't know. Standard just black colored pencil here. Yeah, but we have all that glow in the dark material too. So maybe we have something glow in the dark up top, glowing into that red metallic down below or something. That mirrored metallic. I don't know. Maybe we could do something like that. Because a lot of things wouldn't show up in that red metallic because it's so dark, but maybe if we have some glow in the dark or something like that, you know, going on. Can you imagine that? That type of card? It's like we've moved like far beyond whatever you know, like a more realistic looking type of scene to, you know, now we got glow in the dark things over you know, red mirrored metallic. Or maybe we do something like this. You put like a white pigment ink thing into that metallic. I don't know. I mean, there's other types of usage. You know, it doesn't have to all be like a landscape stamping. You know, for me it does, but you know, for the general usage. All right, so adding in some of this tone on the opposite side of these mountains from the light source. So toning the left side of them like that. So it's kind of like toning them in darker up top, and then we'll have it a little bit lighter below because I'm going to run in some of that white pigment ink so that it looks like clouds or, you know, like thick mist right in this area here. All right, so it looks a little bit more kind of, you know, the volumes are there a little bit more. We'll tone in some of these rocks right here. This in theory is kind of being backlit, but I don't just make this all in silhouette because I want some variation in there. So I just kind of start toning something. I don't like set like a super hard set plan on how to tone these in. I'll tone in a little bit at a time, and I'll see if I like it, if it looks like enough, rather than just doing the whole thing. Or even if you do have a strategy, you know, it's best to kind of add some of the tone in. Take a look at it, see if you like it. If you like it, you can always go more. Some of these rocks in here, they're already tonal, so they're top lit. So I'm kind of darkening in, you know, some of the base of them like that. I try to make these designs as universal as possible, unless it's a silhouette type of design, you know, something like that. But I try to make it where on my designs you can make it where it's like backlit, top lit, or front lit. And, you know, it's kind of in the middle, and you can play it in, you know, multiple ways and have it look, you know, fairly, you know, natural. Well, at the same time, I don't want it so neutral that, you know, that the design doesn't have any visual weight to it and character to it or anything like that. Just inherently, if you just want to stamp it out and not do any coloring, I want it to have some tone in there for those people that just want to do that. So when it comes to coloring for me, I don't know, it's often kind of wide open. Okay, kind of adding some shadow into it and just kind of extending this out this way a little bit with a little bit of shade. And same thing with this. I gave myself a head start by using the texture stamp, you know, the Tiny Rock Small. And I already kind of extended these areas out, so I'm just kind of following suit with a little bit of... This is the black colored pencil, but I'm just using it as like a... I don't know, it's less than 10% gray. And then if I want it darker, I'm kind of, you know, pressing a little bit heavier. But for the most part, it's kind of just going pretty lightly. Okay, so I was going to add in some other foliage down here, and I better do it right now because I'm starting to come into this area with this waxy colored pencil, and that's going to resist some of my inks probably. I don't know with the hybrid ink. The hybrid ink is pretty thick, so I'm not sure. Hollow ones, yeah, the hollow, yeah, we need to bust out those, we're gonna bust out those red ones. I don't know, maybe we put some of those glow-in-the-dark lanterns on it or something like that too. let's add in some of this greenery. Well, it's black, but foliage right in here to soften up the foreground a little bit. Have you guys ever bought any, do you have any paper, like whole, like big packs of paper, or reams, in fact, maybe not a ream of it, but you've just never used it at all? You just kind of bought it because you thought it looked really cool. I think I have some. It's a real soup. I think it's like plastic almost, but it's real holographic. Um, it was in the same place in my room for years. I don't see it. I don't know even know where I put it now. But it's got those like wavy patterns in it. It's not like the metallic one, but I always thought, oh man, that looks so cool. But that was one that it's kind of see-through too, because it's like a plastic, um, oh, kind of translucent sheet. But it looks like that mirror lava patterning to it. That was one that I just like never could figure out anything to do with it, but and still can't. But it looks really cool. Maybe it's just like paper decoration, which a lot of my papers were for so many years. It was a paper shelf decor until we started using it. All right, so foreground elements like that closes off the bottom a little bit more. See this right here? I see this is like a, kind of like a watery area, and this is like damp in here maybe, but this is like shoreline right in here, just kind of created with those uh, pebble, tiny rocks, small stamp impressions. Yeah, we need to do more of that Halloween glow in the dark types of applications, Linda. Do it and take more of those photos under that black light. Linda posted this one piece that she did um, with the those glow in the dark moons on the shimmer paper, and just looking at the photograph, I felt the strain in my eyes. I felt like I was in the room that with that black light. But my eyes didn't have time to adjust either, so it was just like looking at that photo posting on Facebook. I could feel my like my rods and cones burning out or something. In kind of a cool way though, not in a bad way. I always liked those black light, you know, types of situations. It reminds me of seeing these like black light. I think they were velvet posters or something like that especially in the 70s. I don't think it was in the 80s, but some stores that used to sell those types of things would have like a separate room or something like that with them in there, and they'd have the black light on them. All right, so I think that's it with the shading, I guess. I have this, one of the things I haven't used in quite some time is this white pastel pencil. So I thought I'd use some of that too. Try it. I'll bring in some of this white pigment ink too, and we'll see if it blends into the background. Think about not starting off with a white piece of paper. Sometimes adding in some of this can look a little bit harsh, and kind of out of place. But if we bring in enough elements of white where this sun or moon, whatever you see there, is reflecting off enough things, then that white kind of makes a little bit more sense. But we'll see. I have lots of paper. Yeah. Well, I was wondering if that was the same with everyone. I have a feeling that's the same with a lot of us. Whatever paper crafters, card makers. I'm trying to think now if besides that one kind of crazy one, if there's some others that I haven't used before. I think at this point in time, I've used most of them. But they sure sat on top of my on my whatever paper supply for a long time. Okay, this is looking pretty good. I'm just kind of like hatching this down this way, and the dark side was using black, and then the light areas I'm just using a little bit of this white in there like that. I'm kind of going in the same direction. I don't know if it really matters. Now this is a white pastel pencil, so I probably should spray seal this after, finishing here. Because I don't know if it'll... It's not like going in with like a pan pastel where it's like super soft. I feel this is getting set into there. I can, touch it and there's a little bit that comes off, but you're kind of pushing this into it a little bit too. You can see a little bit of glow, and I'll add a little bit down here with the pigment ink too, so I think that's working out pretty decently. Lots of glossy, huh? There's a lot of different types of I think glossy cardstock that used to exist that just aren't around anymore. I think there's a black glossy, but I think there used to be different colors of glossy too. Like one of the ones that I'm using to matte a lot of my papers or cards is this navy blue glossy, and I think it was chrome coat. But I mean, that one I bought on clearance, and that might have been 30 years ago, It was when I just started, Stampscapes. I don't know, it was probably on sale for like dirt cheap back then. But I know it's because, Chrome Coat was getting rid of their, that color. And then Chrome Coat had their things like their holographic that came out. That was so cool. I mean, luckily now we have plenty of choices for holographic, but for a while there, I don't know, there wasn't. You really couldn't find it. Just the printing industry was becoming smaller or something like that. Okay, so we have this little passage of light coming through here. So what I'm doing is I'm adding this into the light areas and then going into these slightly darker areas just a little bit, just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. Like that. I have a feeling that if I add too much of this, it might look a little bit kind of awkward. But if you do, we can just wipe it off. I think you can wipe it off with like a paper towel. Just as long as you do it before you spray seal. Or if you spray seal it and think, oh my god, that was like too light, then just go over it with a little bit of black, I think. Okay, let's see how this looks on tops of some of these rocks here. So some of the rocks I kind of left with a little bit of lightness on them. I'm just going in and just giving it a little bit of a nick, little that type of thing, so that I'm kind of giving it a little bit of a harder application of it, like in one tiny little, I don't know, whatever, like a bite or something like that. Yeah, it looks pretty decent. I think it brought these rocks to, I don't know if it brought them to life, but they look a little bit more rounded to me. They might look a little bit too much, but when I spray seal this, that white pastel on a darker background, it becomes a little bit more see-through. So, it's a good idea to use a little bit more or a decent amount more sometimes than you think is ideal. I say this all the time, just with the notion of this getting spray sealed off and losing some of that opacity of the white. All right, okay, now see this right in here. It's largely the same value of white going across there. It tapers a little bit off here, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit lighter in, I don't know, kind of, I guess the center of it, and then it just kind of dissipates both ways, okay? So I'm going like this way, and this way. Oh, I went over my horse there. All right. Yeah, something like that's a little bit better. A little bit more of a passage. All right, let's see if I even need this white. I think I do, but let's see. I probably like spray seal this first because I have a feeling if I go over that pastel with this wet pigment ink, it might remove some, but let's just see. I just re-inked this too. It was like super, super dry, but let's see. Let's see if I can handle it. Yeah, it's a little bit wet. I'll just kind of tap just nice and gently or lightly. All right, so see that like a little cloud in there like so. We can add it in here too, like right above the application of the pencil. And of course it goes on a little bit, kind of lighter, I guess, so you can get those kind of nice variations up there of a tone. I don't know if I've added this white over so much pastel before like this. That was a little bit too much. So, I'm not exactly sure what this should feel like. And I'm not sure about the rate of application too on top of this powdery, type of medium in the pastels. All right, a little bit more illumination like that. I think what I'd want to do, let me see if I can just mask that rock out a little bit. I think I want to have a little bit of this cloudy kind of glow back right in here, in back of that distant rock. Something like that, I think. I'm trying to think if I should do it here too. I think that'd be a little bit redundant. Let's add some down here. Well, here. I think this will look better too. Let's do it behind this rock as well. Yeah, something like that. That makes that stand out a little bit more. Doing it right here. I mean, I often do that, but I'm thinking on this one, I just want those a little bit different from one another. Let's add some right down in here, right at the base of this horse right here. All right. Okay, a little bit of that misty glow. Looks like there's some right there too. Just, I don't know. I think, I don't know if I put, oh, that was that pencil there. Okay, let me build that up a little bit, see if I can. See, I'm not sure if I'm removing some of that white pastel work by putting this over the top of it or what. Like that. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks pretty good. Let me see. Let me do that over here too. I'm going to try to extend this out, but like in a little billowy fashion. Let's see here. Yeah, it looks a little bit better, I think. Yeah, here, let's build that up a little bit more. That and okay. Let me see right here. That looks a little bit kind of harsh. Pastel pencil blending. Something like that. Okay, and let's see here. Getting this in, I'm like thinking, I'm not done, am I? It seems like it was like too fast. Let me add a little bit of contrast right here. Maybe that we add a little bit of that white fog behind there. Let's add it a little bit to the front of it, maybe too, or something. I'll go a little bit darker up top here just to contrast that against that in the background. And okay, let me go a little bit darker up here. That just to create a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, variation, contrast. Make a couple little things just a little bit darker. Everything else that's lighter than that will seem lighter by contrast, so 3% darker, you know, whatever here makes this whole area in here seem darker by contrast. Oh, I didn't tone down this rock right here, this foreground rock yet. Hello, Sheila, how are you? I have glossy and linen. I haven't used linen in so many years. I need to see if I still have linen anywhere. I don't think I ever had linen paper. But linen envelopes for sure. And I used to do some stamping on envelopes, you know, back when, you know, just a little bit. I wasn't like a mail artisan or something like that, but I remember doing that and just kind of having to compensate for all that texture on there. But I like the look of it though, because I'm all into textures. But sometimes with the like tonal designs, like a cloud cumulus or something like that, if it was just all tone on something like a linen, you might be losing like half of the information. You know, the dots just don't stamp out because that linen is so textured. But more solid imagery, I seem to recall, you know, not disliking the look. You know, I was all into glossy cardstock back then because you get like really smooth and 100%, you know, closer to 100% impressions. But I did like the texture of it. I seem to recall. I haven't done it in a long time. All right, so I think that is it right there. So just a real quick application. I like doing these kind of and I don't know if this looks like a Chinese ink painting type of thing, but you get all this negative space in here, really open areas where there's a lot of really distinct separation between like foreground, midground, and background, And, in other types of stamping, we're filling this in with more mountain texture or something like that. And in here, maybe it's the water pattern or something like that. But I really like this kind of idea of space. It really kind of showcases the designs, um, kind of having them separated. There's some overlap in a couple different areas, for the most part, but it's kind of a style that, the things are kind of, it might be more effective to have them somewhat separated like that to give them kind of like some space and air in between the designs. So it's a fun way to work, and it's certainly fast, And then we do the antique or the vintage paper to boot, so it's like we already have a lot of textures, color, and values already established in there. So I don't know, it's pretty fun to do these once in a while. I was just going to do like a stamp sketch of this, but I thought, well, instead of just doing this on a white piece of paper and you know just seeing what it looks like. You can do it on these different types of papers like this, and just, it's like instant scene practically. Just with a little bit of tone or shading. I haven't worked on the suede paper in a while, but I'll have to do something on this sometime. I really like all of these. The suede one's has a little bit of that sheen to it too. It's almost like a semi-gloss, you know. But it seemed to, from what I recall, it seemed to take all of the different inks just fine. So these ones are a lot more flat, but I don't know, they all work really good. And like I said, they're all cheap, types of papers, but we mount these thicker cardstocks anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Let's see. Not all paper can be stamped on. Yeah, I'm with you there, Cynthia. They're just to be kind of looked at and admired. Some papers are just, they dazzle me, just for what they are. Especially, I never thought I'd be able to work on that holographic cardstock. The holographic printable vinyl sticker paper is a lot easier, but the holographic cardstocks, but those ones especially really surprised me. But it's made possible with the Brilliance inks, of course, though. But yeah, I don't know. I need to figure out some things. Yeah, we have like things like this green metallic too, or I have this one right here. I don't know if I've stamped on this one, but I don't know if I could show you, but this one has this pattern to it. It's almost like a weave or something like that, and it's smooth on the back. But I don't know. I never really figured out what to do on this one right here. I mean, I could stamp on it though, but I don't think it's going to be that interesting. I think it's just, we'd have to kind of emphasize that texture in there. But the color of this one I'm not really into. I thought it'd be kind of a boring type of look to it. So we'll figure out that. Here's that Mary lava. Look at that. Isn't that insane? I stamped something on this one before, and I really love it because it has this satin finish on there. So it surprisingly took inks better than I thought they would. It would. And it took inks better than, the more glossy coated ones, even the, the gold and silver mirrored one that I use all the time. I think this one right here took, I think it accepted the hybrid and the brilliance really well. But to stamp on here, you got to kind of do some blocking out, otherwise you just can't see it because the patterning is so dominant. So, but this one, it was a beautiful surface to stamp on. I don't use it a lot. Like, first of all, like one of my customers bought like whole packs of these ones, and she hadn't used it at all. Was just like bought it for the paper admiration, club. like all of us. But then she just said, hey, I'm going to send you some of it and, see if you can figure out something to do with it. To give her some ideas. I used it like I do the holographic, the more mirrored style one, and it worked pretty good. I just had to spray seal it in the end, to lock the colors down. But it was really fun to work on. That mirrored lava too has a white matte one, and that one there was something about it. It was I really loved working on that. I thought I would like the colored ones more, but it was that white one that was really interesting. I think I was like painting on there or something like that, and I think it took some of the watercolor pencil or something like that surprisingly well, or shockingly. I think it was that. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and check out my video on that one. But it was expensive though. That's why I don't use that type of paper. I don't know. I think it was more than $1 a sheet. So I don't know. It might have been even in the $2 and something, for like a full sheet. So, yeah. Oh, Sheila, this was the vintage paper. So the vintage papers come in. All right, I don't even know where my pack is. This has been sitting on top of my table. But if you type in like vintage paper, like on Amazon, it seems like there's a lot of different sellers for it, and they all seem to come in, not all, but it seems like a lot of them. They'll come in like 4 to 5 different patterns of like 4 or 5 sheets each of 8.5 by 11 of different patterned antique paper. Unless maybe you already knew that, but yeah, so that looks more like, like this. And they're all 8.5 by 11. So a lot of times they have this vignette in all 4 corners, So when you print it out, it looks like your page is nice and kind of contained. So sometimes for me, not necessarily on this one right here, but some of them get kind of dark. So when I'm doing quarter page ones, I only have that one corner that's kind of dark. That's a little bit of a, for me, a little bit of an obstacle. So sometimes I have to kind of tone in the other 3 corners, if I'm cutting it down to 3. This one, it didn't really seem to matter too much. Or I don't know, you can see it darker right here, and it was darker right here. So I just put my sun in that lighter corner, and, I think it looks fine. But yeah, the quarter ones with the really dark edges, So if you ever get any of these types of things, I would watch for how dark those corners are. Unless you're going to be doing 8.5 by 11 pieces, which I hardly ever do. So I try to find the ones that are that have enough patterning on there to make it interesting, but not so contrasty in the background that it might limit what we can stamp over the top of it. Okay, but usually they're not. They're meant to, like, you print out like a document on them, and it looks just like an aged kind of type of print on there. So it's usually kind of wide open in the middle, which is good for us stampers because it's nice and versatile in terms of what you can stamp in there. You love linen cardstock when I'm making photo albums. I don't. Yeah, I need to see if I still have some of that linen somewhere. I think I have. I don't have a huge amount of papers, but I don't know. I need to go through and see what I have again in that in those things, in those different types of surfaces. So I have my like colored cardstock in one area, the more patterned textured ones, and then I have like a big thing of metallics. I should really separate those because some of them are the metallic vinyl, printable vinyls, and some of them are the metallic just cardstocks, very different in terms of what we can do on them. So yeah, and now I have a lot of the different foils too. I don't know. Good thing that all these things are out there for us these days. There's so many things that have been discontinued, but there's so many other things that are out there and available that weren't available back when. So just a matter of, I don't know, whatever, making do and maximizing whatever's out there still, right? Okay, let's see. So much easier to use pencils on. Yeah, it is really easy to use the pencils on. This one right here, I don't know. This one right here, I could probably use the colored pencil on this one too. I don't want to use it too hard on there, but you can see it right there. It works pretty good on this semi-gloss suede. I always keep forgetting the name of that. Suede there. So it looks like we can stamp on rawhide. Oh, you like those finished portal scenes? Yeah. I really like those as a foundation for all those other whatever scenes that we put on there. Those portals are really fun to do. I want to do this other thing too. So we did those, the cloud portals and then the cloud whatever, what did I call it yesterday? I forgot what I called it. Passages or something like that. Trails or something. I don't know. But then you can flip those clouds around, like this, and you can have this trail going, but you have this like that printed one way, and then you do them back to back, so you have these two openings, and the sky, and sometimes it's fun to put a different type of sky up here. You can put nighttime up here and daytime below, or something up here and do, I don't know, a different galaxy down below or something like this, but you can use that like that. So it's like the snaking serpentine of a sky separator like that. But that was like the third way that I use that cloud a lot. I mean, I use it in different ways too, just, behind something. But yeah, the portals are really, I like containment and framing of things anyway, as you know. Vignette, darker corners and things like that, putting things like down here and, framing things up there. But this is a really nice way to, to frame things off in a super soft textural way like that. And then when you put those other things in front of it, trees or something like that, it really creates a big textural contrast, soft against hard and near and far. So you're contrasting distance or whatever, creating the illusion of distance. And then it's value contrast between, like I said, dark and light too. The clouds are usually lighter. I guess you could do darker clouds and, emboss some branches in white against it or something like that too. I haven't done that before, but yeah, I really like all those just inherent contrasts, with the clouds like that. So, and again, going back to the framing thing, it just frames off a scene really nicely. All right, folks. Hope you like the card here. You've seen this done before. But I don't know. On this one right here, I played around a little bit more, maybe with the pastel pencil in conjunction with the white pigment ink, and that seemed to work pretty good. Spray seal this just lightly with like a workable fixative, and it should lock down these lighter applications with the color, the pastel pencil. I don't know if a white colored pencil is going to apply to this very well, at least not my white one. So I felt that the pastel pencil kind of gave myself a much softer style of application, which would make sense, with the dry pastel. This isn't like an oil pastel pencil, it's more like the dry one. And this is the Carbothello by Stabilo, I don't know, how do you pronounce that brand? So anyway, yeah. Thanks for checking out the scene. I think I've stamped, this is the first time I've stamped a horse and like some deer in the background in the same scene before in my life. Have a great rest of evening. Hope to see you in the next live stream. We'll get this formatted and I'll post it to Facebook or something like that later on.